black cloud approached the moon, which was full, lacking what it gave. An aversive feeling of inferiority, unlike the crescent moon and full moon, which form a shape. Complete and specific, and as soon as the cloud hit it, the night was covered with gloomy blackness. An intense cold made its way directly to the bones, and it became a dull night and depressing. Nocturnal creatures began to become active and daytime creatures disappeared, and because of the diurnal creatures at this hour of the night, there was silence throughout the quiet area. The clock struck to announce that it was exactly 3 in the morning, and the houses were all dark or dimly lit. Except one house. It has 2 floors with a short wall wrapped around it to give it some privacy. Like a small villa. It was the home of Professor Saeed, the director and owner of a school. The special lighthouse inside the house was empty except for his wife, Alia. Still awake, waiting for his return. She was in her 40s and thin, with short black hair falling over delicate, frail features. She wears a white robe. She was wearing her pajamas and was sitting on the sofa in the hallway of the house. Downstairs, she cowered in her corner, her fist supporting her tired cheek to prevent. Her head fell so much that it looked like a pile of silk curtains from afar. In front of her was a loud cassette playing a piece of Mozart's symphony. It was not to follow up, but as a form of distraction and to kill time, so that she is not plagued by anxiety and loneliness. As it is slowly getting past 3 o'clock and her husband has not returned yet. Her condition worsened even more when she called his friends without knowing any news about him. Morning is the first day of the school year, and he cannot be absent until this day. At this particular dawn, when he was the director and owner of the school, he was interested in it. A feeling of dread and helplessness. Do you start going out and looking for him? But at this hour, of course, it is difficult, especially since she might go out. He returns and does not find her, and a terrifying cycle of mutual anxiety revolves. Do you call his friends again? If he had reached someone with news, he would have reassured her. Perhaps calling her back at this hour would truly cause concern. Hospitals and departments. No, this is another option. It is not right to create a whirlwind that might happen for no reason and just cause embarrassment. Also, thinking in this direction will have a bad effect. What can be done is patience, for it will arrive, God willing. Said had almost no friends, all relationships are superficial, and it is difficult to find him involving anyone in his affairs to the point of staying at this late hour with someone. He is a very conservative and organized person whose schedule and routes can be easily predicted. You see what delayed him to this hour, in addition to his sudden departure without an explanation of the reason or location. She got up from the couch and went up to his office room on the top floor and began searching through all his belongings, looking for anything that might lead her to his whereabouts. She picked up his phone book, opened it, and looked at the written numbers and names that she had not yet contacted. She approached the phone that was on top of his desk, holding a speaker, forgetting that it was approaching dawn, and began to dial the first number of someone she did not know. Then she put the phone back in place and looked anxiously at the door. I heard the sound of a car engine approaching, and I rushed eagerly. Window, but the car engine was silent and no car approached the house. It appears to be a neighbor's car. Do you go out and ask him for help? She is alone now and has no one, and her only son is traveling, and he will certainly seek an excuse for her, as Saeed is known in the neighborhood. But what could she say? That her husband is lost. She regretfully returned to her failed attempt with the telephone, then heard simple sounds. But it can be recognized in this terrible stillness and amplified amidst this anxiety. The terrible. A groaning sound pierced her ears, a voice she knew perfectly well, the voice of Saeed, her husband. I approached the office window, the glass of which was closed, but the shutter was open. She saw a ghost creeping from afar, limping on his foot, the same as her husband's, which was caused by an old accident. She set off restlessly for the door. Then she runs to the street. As far as her sight could see, it was there. Saeed was dragging himself from the side of the car that he had left far from the house, groaning, fresh blood shining on his short hair, his sculpted red cheeks, and his pink shirt was torn and stained with blood and mud, and scratches spread all over his body in a terrible way. She screamed his name, but no one was awake to hear her weak voice that hoarse with the scream. She rushed to him, putting her shoulder under his arm to support him as she cried until she brought him into the house and closed the door. I laid him on the couch, then she collapsed crying, not knowing what she was doing. Then she got up and went to the kitchen to bring him something to bandage his terrible wounds, which indicates that he had been eaten by a hideous animal except for a little. She stopped halfway back to him again when he murmured her name with difficulty. She collapsed next to him on the sofa and was sobbing. He controlled himself and said to her, "We don't have much time. There's an old book that looks like it was made of leather in a language like Latin, and it contains many symbols." The man coughed, then continued, "The book is located in a hidden cupboard, inside the small cupboard in my office at school. From now on I am giving it to you, and our son will inherit it after you. Hide it where no one can reach it, and no one will be able to take it from you. Then leave the country immediately and travel to Imad, our son. Let him take care of you and himself, and forgive me if I bequeath to you this legacy that I carried without my desire." Then he breathed his last on her chest, and she held his head to her chest so tightly. Her clothes were stained with his blood, and she was crying mixed with hoarse screams. About a quarter of an hour passed as she cried and held him to her chest until she woke up to the sound of the wall clock announcing that it was 4 o'clock. Then she remembered his last words. "You see, is it time to call the police and family, or is there a great danger in which she must listen to her husband's words? You have to leave the house anyway." I rested his head on the sofa cushion and took the car key from his pocket. She quickly put on clothes to go out and left without closing the door, rushing to the car, looking right and left. The harsh air hit her and a cold shiver ran through her body. She went to the car, opened it, sat down, then closed all the windows. All this while she was crying softly. Then she began to recall how her husband used to drive the car, which she had never tried to learn. As she looked right and left, she noticed in the darkness an ugly man with only blackness and shadows visible from his features. Next to him is an animal resembling a wolf with a bent back, with its hind legs being much longer than its front legs. Her scream came out muffled from the closed car window when the man released the wolf towards her. She tried to start the car engine with her trembling hand, to no avail as the wolf started toward her and then jumped to the ground as the car sped off. While the giant wolf took off after her with amazing speed, with blood dripping from his gaping mouth, the man dressed in black came forward from the door of the apartment, which was open. Then he entered the house. He approached Saeed's body, which was lying on the couch in eternal slumber, and knew that he was dead when he touched his blood-stained neck. He looked at his body with a look of hatred, then left the apartment. He started running at a speed that was not appropriate for his old age until he reached the car, which was turned on its side, and the giant wolf was standing on top of it, searching for an opening to devour the body inside. The wolf returned to his master in meekness as soon as he signaled to him. Then the man extended his face forward on both sides of the road and saw Al-Manna Private School. He smiled an unpleasant smile and then returned home again. He carried Saeed's body on his shoulder and pointed with his fingers, and the blood that was on the couch evaporated. He closed the door, then headed towards the car, which was not far from the house. He took out from the folds of his clothes a metal rod resembling a royal scepter, and with it he broke the windows of the car, in which Alia was drowned in blood. He opened the door that was facing the top and placed the body of Saeed to make it appear as if the matter was complete. If it was a traffic accident and the door was closed, then he left the car and was swallowed by darkness, followed by the giant wolf.